So, you wanna kill a vampire, you wanna whack a drac, stamp a vamp, stake a drake, give last rites to the one who bites. Well, hold on to your wild horses, because that's what we're going to learn how to do in this video. Now, if you don't understand the basics of the Fury of Dracula combat system, then leave this video now. This is not going to teach you the basics. Go read a rulebook or watch a tutorial or something. Because you have to understand the basics before you can even begin to get good at the combat system in this game. So now that you've done that, because time dilation is a thing on YouTube videos, let's talk about cards. Now, I'm going to go through every single combat card for Dracula. And then I'm going to go through all of the cards for the Hunters and explain how you play the Hunters and beat Dracula in this game. It's not easy, but we'll get to it. So, we're going to start with the most important cards. Actually, the most important two cards, and that's Mesmerize and Strength. These cards are the most important for Dracula in the game because they are the cards that cancel. Meaning that whatever the Hunter was trying to do will not happen unless they cancel, unless, the Hunter's card cancels Dracula's card. Again, I'm not teaching basics here. But canceling that Hunter's card will keep Dracula from taking damage. And if Dracula's not taking damage, Dracula's winning. If Dracula goes the whole game and doesn't take damage, he wins. So the things that keep him from taking damage are the most important things. This is especially true for Strength. So let's open with Strength. Strength cancels any weapon, crucifix, and this is really the crazy part with Strength, it also discards those cards at night. And usually these combats will be taking place at night, so I'm going to be doing this whole guide as if this is at night. That's nuts. Strength damages, it cancels the card so you don't take damage, and it discards the card. There are cards that cancel Strength, but there are none of the Hunter cards that cancel Strength that actually damage Dracula. With sort of an exception of one, but we'll get to that. It's Heavenly Host, it's the best card in the game, it's good in any circumstance, sort of, so it being good against Strength is not really unique. So the fact that when you play Strength you basically are like, okay, next round, we aren't taking damage, is really important. This means, as the Hunters, you have to play around Strength, and to a lesser extent, you have to play around Mesmerize. We'll get to that. There are ways of baiting out Strength, we'll talk about that, but you have to understand how deadly this card is. This card wins games for Dracula. I have seen so many new Hunters be like, man, I got a pistol, I got a rifle, I got knives, I got holy bullets, I got all this stuff, I'm gonna go kill Dracula. And they play their pistol, and then it gets broken, and then they take damage. And then they play their rifle, and then the second Strength comes out and breaks it. And now you have no weapons, or maybe no weapons, or one weapon left. You've taken 4 damage, and now Dracula still has cancel cards with Mesmerize, and he can basically just have his way with you, and it's the worst thing ever. Be afraid of Strength as Hunters. Sometimes Dracula won't open with it as a meme, or maybe he won't draw it, but you have to be worried about this card. Weapons are bad because of this card. And we'll talk about weapons in a bit. That's a simplicity thing, we'll get into it. So, are you afraid of Strength? Good. Keep that. We'll talk about how to deal with it later, but let's move on to the other cards. We're going to talk about Mesmerize now. Mesmerize is a worse version of Strength. Now, Mesmerize is okay. It has some synergies with fangs, it's how you get bites on people, which is nice. It reduces weapon damage by 1, and that's kind of nice. You know what also reduces weapon damage? Destroying the weapon. Except it's way better to destroy the weapon. Mesmerize is also canceled by Punch, which makes it really risky to play. But, it's a cancel card. That's good. And if you don't have Strength, playing Mesmerize is a decent play, because again, the Hunters don't know that you don't have Strength, and they're going to assume that you're going to play Strength, and they'll probably play around that. I wouldn't always... Well, we're not talking about strategy with Dracula. We're talking about the Hunters. Hunters should be afraid of Mesmerize, but not as much because mesmerize is really just a combo for fangs, and there's a lot you can do about fangs, and we'll get into that. Let's not talk about plotting right now. Let's talk about fangs, since we just talked about mesmerize. Fangs is good. It does a lot, you know, covers damage, deals damage. You can get points with it if you do the whole bite. If you do the combo. The combo's hard to do, but if you pull it off, it can be really good. The problem with fangs is that it's very predictable. If you get mesmerized, the hunter's going to assume that you're going to go fangs, because you get so much out of it. And they'll probably play something that cancels fangs. And the thing is, most things that cancel fangs, they also cancel a lot of other stuff too. So, don't be too afraid of fangs as the hunters. Sometimes Dracula will go fangs to heal, but usually fangs, the stuff that cancels it, cancels other stuff as well. You don't have to worry about it too much. Let's talk about the escapes. No, let's talk about claws. So claws is not as good as it looks. It's the damagey attack, it's the aggressive thing, it's the thing that does the most damage. It's also the thing that's the weakest in the daytime, if you compare it to some of the other cards. I would say it's bad. I would say it's one of the two bad non-escape cards for Dracula. It does a lot of damage, that's fine, but it doesn't cancel, and so if you play claws, whatever the hunters do, you're gonna do it. If you play a weapon, if you play... in fact, a lot of weapons cancel claws. If you play Heavenly Hosts, if you play basically anything, when Dracula plays claws, he's gonna take damage, most likely. Dracula's gonna play claws in a situation where he thinks the hunters aren't gonna be able to play a card that can hurt him. So it's just a really risky play. If you're a hunter, you're hoping he plays claws. You're gonna take damage, but you need to understand that this is the hunters. If the hunters are taking as much damage as they're dealing Dracula, the hunters are absolutely winning that exchange. It's not even close. Like, if the hunters are taking 2/3 the damage they're dealing Dracula, they're winning that exchange. So Dracula dealing more damage is not... I mean, it's how you can get kills. Also, you can, you know, attack one person and do the damage to somebody else, but both of these can hit the same person, and that, you know, that's big. It's the aggressive play by Dracula, but if Dracula plays it, they're going to get hit. Okay, let's talk about the escapes. Escape is bad, is really good. It's really scary. Now, before we talk about escapes, you need to understand how the pride mechanic works. So go learn that, because I'm not teaching you basics here. Now you understand how pride works, because you looked it up like a normal, good human being. So you have to wait a few rounds before you can escape. You really need to keep that in mind, as both sides. Because escaping as Bat is insane. It's a free wolf form, and then after that, after dusk, Dracula gets to move again, a third time, as his normal movement, which, oh, by the way, can be wolf form. And that's when you get into Speedboat Dracula, who's just zipping around the map like a crazy lunatic. So things that cancel escape as Bat are valuable because of that. Because it can be very predictable when Dracula is going to escape his bat, because it's the turn that he can escape. So generally, he should escape right away, unless he's really wrecking the hunters. Ways that you can play around this is escaping the turn before Dracula can escape his bat, which is good. It's a decent play, you know. Then Dracula's stuck in place, and you can hunt him down a lot easier. Or you can play cards that cancel escape as bat. Now, you have to be careful about that if you have a team of more than one hunter. Because what Dracula can do is just choose to attack the person he thinks doesn't have the card that cancels escape bat. And then even if there are 3 other hunters that all pull out rifles to try to cancel escape as bat, it doesn't matter, because Dracula will still escape because the person he fought didn't cancel his escape as bat. So that's something you need to worry about, and if somebody doesn't have something that cancels escape as bat, they should probably retreat the turn before escape as bat can be used. So these are all things to think about. It's something you need to play around. In the early game, and by that I mean the early part of a combat round, which goes 6 rounds, you need to be worrying about strength, you need to be worrying about mesmerize. Towards the late game, you need to be worrying about fangs, and you need to be worrying about escape as bat. Let's talk about escape as mist. Escape as Mist is fine. So the big thing about Escape is Missed is that it doesn't move Dracula, which is really good for the hunters, but it also is not countered by anything but Crucifix, which is kind of huge. Escape is Missed used to be an overpowered, just horrible thing in 2nd edition. They really toned it back in this one. Also, this should be noted, there's only one copy of Escape is Missed in the deck, and that's important. So it's generally not worth it to try to play around Escape is Missed, because Escape is better, and if Dracula escapes and stays in place, it's not that bad. I mean, catch him next turn. So that's the escape cards. Also, be really careful about canceling Escape is Missed, because, okay, you've canceled Escape is Missed. What if he escapes his bat the next turn? That's... man, I would just feel so bad if I canceled Escape is Missed and the next turn Dracula escapes his bat. I would just feel like a total idiot. So yeah, honestly, I would not try to cancel Escape is Missed if you think he can still escape his bat. But really, for the most part, just don't worry about it. Don't play around it. It's rare enough. It's not going to happen. Plotting. I'm actually going to hold off talking about plotting until I get into the basic cards for the hunters. But generally speaking, plotting is a bad card. Now, none of the Dracula cards are really bad. Like, they're all really powerful, and, like, Dracula's very powerful in 3rd and 4th edition. Plotting is specifically good against Crucifix and Dodge. But other than that, if Dracula goes plotting, he's basically... it's like fangs. They're not fangs. It's like claws in the sense that when Dracula does it, he's just going to get wrecked by the hunters. But it doesn't have the advantage of actually, like, doing damage like claws does. It's like mesmerize in the sense that it's a combo move for later, but it's kind of not as good. I mean, it's good if the hunters don't have a lot of weapons, and they'll be doing a lot of basic moves, but if that's the case, Dracula's already in a good position, so it's kind of a win-more situation. So that's all the Dracula cards. Now we can start talking about the game, because a lot of Fury of Dracula is building your characters as the hunters. And this is really important because the hunters don't have control over who finds Dracula first. Dracula has control over that, sort of. So as much as it'd be like, oh, I'd like to have this guy be good at fighting Dracula, and this guy be good at fighting the vampires he leads behind, and this guy good at fighting different encounters or whatever, or this guy is a good support character, you can't choose that. Dracula is going to show up where he shows up, and you better hope that that person is able to deal with what they're able to deal with. So you really have to craft your character as you go. As you figure out what you're nearby, you want to change what items you're using to go for that. I'm not really going to talk about the non-combat cards like dogs and fast horses. Dogs is pretty bad. Generally discard it, but it's not combat, so we're not talking about it. Fast horses is really good, actually. Ooh, yeah. Okay, so let's start with the worst, actually. Let's start with the worst cards. The worst card